All right, here we go. Three, two, one, let's do this. Hello, welcome to the Storm Before the Chase podcast. I got that right this time. I am your host, Lori Grace Bailey, and I've been fascinated with weather ever since I was a kid watching monsoon storms rage over the mountains in West Texas. Thrill-seeking adventurers, including storm chasers, extreme athletes, and weekend warriors who often find themselves pushing the boundaries of life, all share a collective narrative about the surprising tranquility encountered when teetering on the edge. But many of these individuals fought the bitter battle of profound adversities, many nearly losing their lives in the process. These narratives often remain untold in favor of sensationalized sound bites that only highlight the thrill of the chase rather than the long, unpaved roads they've traveled. It's time to tell the rest of the story. It's time to tell their story. So today, I am delighted to be with my guest, Hunter Fowkes. Did I say it right? Fowkes. See, I got it wrong the second time. Go figure. Hunter Fowkes. I've always said it right. Hunter is a storm chaser and soon-to-be meteorologist. Hopefully that's right. He currently lives in Ames, Iowa, finishing his bachelor's degree in meteorology from Iowa State University this year. He is married to his wife, Lucia Fowkes, got it right, and they have been married for 5 years in September. He has lived across much of the western central U.S., including Arizona, Colorado, Texas, Nevada, Idaho, and Iowa. Whew, geez, Hunter. His greatest passion stemmed from watching dust storms and monsoons in Arizona. Yay, Arizona. This led to a hobby of chasing storms, which began in 2009, where with his family, he saw his first tornado, an EF1 tornado in northeast Iowa. 15 storm seasons have passed, and he has chased well over 100 tornadoes and hundreds of storms. Not saying I'm a little jealous here, but I'm a little jealous. He had the opportunity to run a couple of successful private chase tours over the 2022 and 2023 seasons. His interests expanded towards chasing a hurricane for the first time in 2020, Hurricane Delta, and is looking to chase storms for the rest of his life. He enjoys photographing not only storms and tornadoes, but also capturing the northern lights for 2 years across the mid-latitudes in the U.S. He enjoys spending time outside and going on adventures, whether it be mountain biking, hiking, skiing, etc. In his time not spent in college or storm chasing, he is involved in his church and involved in the local AMS, the American Meteorological Society, and Center Iowa NWA chapters. Whew, that's pretty good. Thanks for joining me on the Storm Before the Calm podcast, Hunter. How's it going, man?
Good. I'm happy to be here. I'm honored to be here as one of the first people, and I don't know. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Oh man, hearing about your past in Arizona. Wow, so you actually fell in love with haboobs and seeing the cool Arizona stuff before you actually fell in love with the plain storms, the extreme storms. That's pretty wild.
Absolutely. For those that don't know me, which hopefully is not a lot of people, because that makes podcasts fun. But I was born in Arizona, and so I spent most of my childhood up till about age 10 in the Phoenix area, particularly Mesa, Gilbert area. And I have these fond memories as a kid of watching storms blow through off of the mountains, or you get haboobs, or they're called dust storms, that would roll through. And they were so fascinating to me because they were the one thing that changed society. They either caused you to pause, halt, shut down, take a moment, because weather is way more impactful and more powerful than we are as a people. And when you stare at the sun for 350 days out of the year, it's kind of cool when clouds show up. So I just fell in love with them, and I loved, because Arizona is so dusty, it's really easy to get dust storms because of the heat. And I loved running and jumping into dust storms and feeling the wind shift as it moved across you. So I was this geeky, 8-year-old kid that loved the weather.
What is wrong with you? By the way, I've been in dust storms all my life, being in West Texas. So you're telling me you like being pelted by millions of grains of sand at the same time?
Absolutely.
What's wrong with you?
Absolutely. And one of the coolest experiences being inside of a dust storm is not the dust or the wind, it's the changing of light and colors inside of dust storms.
Absolutely.
And just seeing how society changes, the colors, and the impact.
Oh,
It's
dude.
really fascinating.
Isn't it crazy how the dust also acts as a by the way, this isn't a podcast about dust storms and haboobs, but I've allowed the haboob to actually overtake me, and then I get out and it's almost like you're on Mars, isn't it? Not only that, but I think it has a dampening effect in noise, and all of a sudden there's this deadness in this reddish landscape, and it's so surreal to just sit there and almost like you have headphones on. I don't know if you've experienced that, but if you get into a dust storm, don't drive into them or try to get out of them. Just let it pass you once that happens. Yeah, because I've seen many accidents. I'm sure you've seen lots of people that were driving in a dust storm. It's super, super dangerous. Probably one of the most dangerous things you can do in Arizona. But isn't that incredible to experience as it comes over? It's pretty wild,
Oh
isn't it?
yeah, it's super cool. For those that have never been in a dust storm, it's similar to basically a heavy snow band, except it's way warmer and you don't want to open your mouth.
Oh, that's true. And cameras too. If you let your camera just get coated, oh, forget it.
Cover
When
everything,
you go to
eyes,
take them,
nose, mouth.
right?
Just don't.
And other little parts in your body that you have to wash out that you'll feel them everywhere. And in your teeth, it's not fun. But enough about dust storms. We could talk all about haboobs. I love haboobs and I cannot lie. So let's not even go with there. But so you did tell me a little bit about how you fell in love with storms and meteorology. How did that continue to grow? You know, as you said you were experiencing storms in Arizona and stuff, but how did that continue to grow? And how did that grow into not just a love for storms, but a passion to actually chase them? Right? You hear the Weather Service. There's a motto that the National Weather Service says: "When thunder roars, go indoors." But when thunder roars, Hunter stops at go. Right? When thunder roars, go, Hunter. That's what your motto is, kind of, right?
Basically, uh, it honestly, the how I got into storm chasing really does stem from the desert monsoons. Um, and I remember the first time that I saw hail, actually, which funny enough was also in Phoenix. I had a little hailstorm that moved over the Denver, Phoenix, Phoenix, Arizona
See,
metro area.
I'm not alone.
I've lived in places, okay? It all just, but um,
Becomes one city all at once.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. So, had this hailstorm move over, and it actually went tornado warned really briefly. So they had some sirens go off, and me, as I think I was like 8 years old, maybe 9, and I just remember looking up at the sky, seeing the dark black textures and wispy cloud bottom, and thought it was so cool. And I looked outside, and I started seeing these white little pellets everywhere, and I was like, "What the heck is that?" And so 9-year-old me is like, let's go check it out. And so I open the door, I sprint out, and if you've ever watched cartoons, you know what running on marbles looks like. And I want to tell you that that is 100% what happened. I ran out, I took one step on some hailstones and went, "Boo!" and fell right on my tailbone on the concrete. So I fell, hit the ground, I'm face up, getting pelted in the face with rain and hail, and I have to like crawl back into the house. And I laid on the inside of my door. The door was still open, but I crawled inside, laid down, and was like, "That was so cool," but also, ow.
And so something happened, maybe a little brain damage
maybe
after you
maybe
fell
that's what
that
it is.
decided I have to go chase tornadoes now. Is that what happened? I mean,
No, I
holy
wouldn't say
cow.
it's probably that route, but I did have a nice bruise on my butt for a bit of time. But that was just like
Wow.
one of those experiences that happens in life that makes you think, wow, this is actually really cool, and it kind of sticks in your mind. And as I grew up, I watched the Weather Channel a lot. There were a lot of infamous tornadoes and hurricanes that happened in the early to mid 2000s that really captured my interest. And once we moved out of Phoenix towards Denver, I finally got to see what winter looks like for the first time in my life. I lived 10, almost 11 years of my life never knowing what winter was. We had snow up in the mountains, but
Oh yeah.
I've never experienced winter myself. So I remember the first time it got below freezing in Denver where I lived, and I remember the first time I saw snow in my backyard. And I remember we got absolutely dumped on that season. It was in, I want to say, 2008. we had a bunch of big snowstorms around Christmas, and I just remember seeing like a couple feet of snow in my backyard, and it was cold. Like right after, it was brutally cold, and it was like minus 15
What is
and
this white
just
stuff?
brutal. Yeah, and I was like, I don't really like this anymore. I'll stick to the hundreds. 120 is way better than this, and to this day, I still agree. But but living there, I also got to experience some weather events, some real thunderstorm events. And actually, while I lived there, for those that are familiar with the tornado, the Windsor, Colorado tornado occurred also in the time that I lived in this part of Denver. It was to my north, but I was living on the north side of Denver. I was living in Westminster, Broomfield. The tornado occurred a little bit further north, so I never was in really any danger of being hit by the tornado. But for those that don't know, it was a large EF3, almost mile wide tornado that went west of I-25, and it was moving northwest towards Fort Collins. And I remember hearing about that tornado and seeing an image of someone taking a picture from an overpass as the tornado moved by. And there just was this giant black mass because they were taking it from the east side looking west, so you had all the sunlight behind it. So it was just this dark, mean looking tornado. And I was like, that was just up the road. That's really cool.
Huh.
I want to see that.
Right.
And at the time, what also was a popular running TV show, Storm Chasers. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
combine all of these weather events starting to happen in my life in a very early age of my life, but late enough where I'm starting to kind of piece, things together, realize, hey, tornadoes are a thing that happen. They're caused from thunderstorms. They're created from warm air and cold air and wind shear, and starting to piece things together. And my mind was really curious of how it happens, and could I actually see it from my own eyes? Because I had watched Storm Chasers growing up with Reed Timmer versus always Sean Casey versus Tim Samaras. It always seemed that was their big trope.
The way they modeled the narrative.
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
I'm sure it was less like that in reality, but
they were all friends for the most part, and but it was fun to watch their show because they were the best of the best at the time. And Reed was getting into intercepting tornadoes with the Dominators. You had Sean in the TIV, and you were really starting to pioneer some real citizen science of tornado research. Tim had already gotten his probe into a tornado in South Dakota in 2003, if I am recalling correctly. But there was still more we needed to understand about what's inside of a tornado. And to this day, I still think we do need to understand more.
Oh, for
but
sure.
It was an exciting time of watching your people you could idolize performing research and chasing tornadoes. And for me, as a young boy, really geeky little kid, just thought that was the coolest thing on the planet. And I told myself, I want to go storm chase one day. I want to see a tornado, and I want to do this. I want to know what that's like. And not too much longer after that point, a couple of years would pass where I would then move to Texas, have more severe storms and hailstorms there, and then to Iowa, where I lived in Cedar Falls, where I would finally have my first opportunity to see a tornado. So, dreams do come true.
Wow. So you've moved all around, but you could tell that even from an early age, from being in Arizona, the fascination was always there on weather and hooked on weather. Were there things, I mean, that can't be easy either for a young kid getting moved around all the time. And hey, I just started establishing a group of friends, and now I've got to do it all over again. Now I got to do it all over again. And now I got to do it all over again. How did that come to play in Hunter actually going through, not only geeking out about chasing and wanting to learn more about this, but did you find it hard maintaining friends? And once you did you have to redo that each and every time? Was that kind of a tough time to go through as you were doing that? And so learning to kind of geek out in a way and kind of obsess over storm chasers and all the cool things that Tim Samaras and Reed and Sean Casey and everybody that was involved in that, was that kind of a way for you to, just kind of a catharsis for you to live, vicariously through them? I know it was for me. Growing up, I wanted to be a I actually wanted to study tornadoes at Texas Tech because I know there was a crew, uh, a group of people before storm chasers even came out, and I think they were called tornado trackers or tornado chasers or something at the time. And I was in high school thinking I want to do that, and life takes you in different paths. But I'd like to know, how was that growing up and just being constantly uprooted and moving around? How did that feel? How did that make
Yeah.
you feel?
No, that's actually a really good question, and that's an experience that I've had to live through a lot of my life. Um, that as my alarm goes off, sorry. Um,
It's okay.
you're absolutely right. I had to go through that process a lot in life, and it was through a pretty important period of my life, to say the least. I think the years between 8, 10 years old through probably about your early high school years are a really important year for a kid to go through social development and ability to make friendships, connect with family, and spend time with them. And if you're able to do that and that is your life, then you have a very great support system through life. In that case, I did not have that. Moving around so
Mm.
much, all my extended family, everybody is all back in Arizona. It was just my family, my parents, and my two siblings. We moved a
Mm.
lot, and actually, funny enough, I actually went to three fifth grade schools and two sixth grade schools within 2 years of time. So if you want to talk about being uprooted and trying to make friends and then saying bye, yeah, that was the story of my
Ah,
life. I've had to make a lot of friendships in my life and ultimately say goodbye because um, obviously as a kid you don't really have a lot of control of what goes around, and it's not to my parents' fault. It was purely just a period of
sure.
life that was very full of turmoil, for jobs and whatnot. My dad always he got laid off
Absolutely.
repeatedly and kept moving to company, etc. But we were never without. My dad and my mom worked together to make a plan, so my family was always together and able to push through different challenges of moving and whatnot. Um, but it was always a change, and it was a pretty quick change all the time. Like I moved at 10 years old to Colorado. After a year that I moved to Texas, I spent 6 months in Dallas and then moved to Iowa. Then I spent 4 years there and then moved back to Colorado to finish my last 2 years of high school. So any friendships that I made through all of my life were basically just completely tossed aside because you move
Ouch.
away, and it's really hard. And your question also was like, did I use storm chasing to kind of overcome that? And absolutely, I did. Meteorology and my fascination for weather was the thing that got me through a lot of things in my life.
Mm.
Um, there was a period
Yeah.
of my life when I was in my teens where I was probably clinically depressed, but I never went and got diagnosed. But for 3 years, I really suffered through a lot of
No
very
kidding.
heavy depression. To one point, even I considered
Wow.
some really dark things, which I don't think I need to get into,
Oh,
but I think you can understand where
right,
I'm
right.
getting. Um, and
Dude.
it was a lot of soul searching to go through and find myself. Who am I? What do I enjoy? What really matters in this world? And to
Wow.
me, the only thing that burned bright was the ability to my family's support and their
Mhm.
enthusiasm for me and what I enjoyed. And for me, that was a combination of obviously my church and God, and then
Mhm.
secondly was my passion for weather. Nothing else mattered. It doesn't matter how much I was bullied. Doesn't matter how much what people thought. Doesn't matter if somebody says it's stupid, dumb, waste of time, money. It's a waste of your life. I don't care.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters because this was the thing that anchored me and gave me purpose in my life. And when I
Dang.
decided that, hey, meteorology is the thing I want to do with the rest of my life, and I want to go to college and get my degree, and potentially, go into that field, it came from those core moments when I was very early in storm chasing, and I was going through elementary school, middle school, and into high school. That I told myself, hey, it does not matter what people say. It does not matter what they think. They could say whatever they
Mm.
want. Their words mean nothing because this is what matters to me. And from that
Right.
point on, I've still dealt with challenges and experiences. of people telling me that, hey, you shouldn't chase this because it's dumb. Hey, you shouldn't chase this because it's far away. Hey, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that because I think that. And it doesn't. And in the end of the day,
Yeah.
it does not matter what somebody else thinks. If something fills you with life, fills you with purpose, gives you a reason to wake up and get out the door, who cares what anyone else has to say? My only thing is go make a difference in the world and go make something positive. Go do something good with your life. For me, I took that internally and said, hey, meteorology is an important feat, and it's not a perfect science, and we've got a long way to go. And through a lot of my own personal experiences with people throughout my life, but then also severe weather events, right? How hard is it to rely on the one thing that really keeps you alive, but then know that this thing is something that continuously kills people every single day? Or I shouldn't say every single day, but like it can kill people. It destroys lives. It removes friends from friends, family from family, homes from families. It destroys. The purpose of severe weather is to destroy, right? There are benefits that come from severe weather and storms like rainfall and whatnot, and it keeps things alive and our ecosystem going. But tornadoes in of themselves are a force of destruction. That's their whole purpose. They are created, and anything that touches them is destroyed generally. So you have to do a bit of soul searching to try to sit there and think, well, is this really something I want to love and spend the rest of my life with? And when I recognize that, hey, I want to make a difference, and this is the thing that is the most passionate thing to me, but there clearly is somewhere to go with this. We still have a long way to go. My personal philosophy is that there is not a single reason someone should ever lose their life in severe weather. There are situations that obviously there's nothing you could do, and that's it. But I'd rather know that someone did everything they could and still lost their life than knowing that they were negligent or uninformed and lost their life, because that was preventable, and that is unacceptable. And so throughout my life and my storm chasing and whatnot, I've been in several search and rescue situations of pulling people out of rubble. Fortunately, a lot of my tornadoes that I've chased have all been non-killers, so it's great because that means, hey, that's what insurance is for. We can repair buildings, we can repair roads, we can build back structures, but we can't replace somebody. And only one tornado that I've seen has actually killed somebody, and it was the Winterset 2022 tornado here in March. It killed, I believe, 6 people as it tore through, and it was one of those situations of it went from 0 to 100 immediately, and unfortunately some houses were in the way, and there was nothing they could have done to really survive the tornado. There just wasn't the ability to make it through that, and it's really tragic.
Right.
And, I really personally struggled because, like I said, I've already gone through search and rescue before, and I have a permanent rule of myself is that if I'm chasing a storm and I see a tornado take out a house, it does not matter what happens with that tornado for the rest of the time. Screw the tornado, does not matter. I need to go look and see if anyone's in that house and if they're okay. If they're okay and I'm okay to leave, we can continue the chase, but people's lives matter more to me because I'd rather know that I put in an effort to try than finding out that house had a fatality, and if the paramedics had gotten there 5 minutes sooner, they could have lived. And that was something that I lived with and still kind of do from the Winterset tornado, because it was, like I said, it went from 0 to 100 really quick. It spawned, immediately took a very large shape, and started producing violent damage almost immediately.
Do you feel the emotions with that when you're there? Does it finally overwhelm you at some point? Sometimes I've been, I've seen some stuff in my own career and doing all the things I've done, but you can't help, you can put it aside, you can compartmentalize it, right? But then after a while, that door is going to open up again. It's the elevator door in The Shining, right? That blood's going to come back out and come at you. I don't know if it's a good analogy, but
hey, it works.
Oh man,
it works. No, you're.
Yeah, it does, right? I mean,
you're absolutely right.
That's.
It took me. Fortunately, I only think it took me about a month to kind of deal with that, because what happened was I was following behind the tornado, and I only caught one glimpse of it. And at the time of me taking the picture of it, it's a super blurry picture, not great, but you see a large cone-shaped tornado moving off in the distance, and that's all I got. I
Oh
got one
wow.
glimpse at it, and I didn't even think it was a tornado
Mm.
at the time until I drove up Highway 169 into Winterset. It's on the south side of town. Drove right up on it and drove through the damage path. And I remember looking up at a house on a hill and thinking, "Oh, that's slightly damaged." And then there was a open foundation right next to it. And assuming that the house was the house, I assumed, "Oh, that was just a garage." Those get destroyed super easily. Does not indicate a violent tornado. Those can get taken in EF1s. Doesn't need a 4 or a 5 to do that damage. And
Right,
so I
right.
saw the damage, but then I saw another key thing was seeing trees behind it were completely shredded and slightly debarked, and all that was left was just the major trunks. Usually a indicator of a strong to violent tornado. So we're talking
Sure.
EF3 plus tornado. But again, I
Mm.
didn't think much of it. But unfortunately, to my left, I did not know this at the time, but I was about 45 seconds behind the tornado and still could barely see it. And I found out after the fact, about 20 minutes down the road, trying to catch up to the tornado, that road to the left was where three houses were. And in one of those
Oh
houses
man.
was where people died. And I struggled with that because immediately I thought to myself, hey, I immediately did not obey my own personal rules. And I don't want to call it survivor's guilt because that like downplays people who actually go through severe weather events. But I had this
Hmm.
guilt thinking, why didn't I stop? Why didn't I go look? But the answer is I didn't know, right? How would I have known? They're not. It's not take look clear
Sure.
and you see an open foundation. I've never been to the area before, so how would I know that's a house? How would I know there were houses
Right.
down that road? I wouldn't have known. But if you drove just down that road, three houses, and one of them was completely wiped away off the foundation, and that was where the EF4 or 170-mile-per-hour wind damage
Holy
indicator came from.
moly.
And I struggled for that, and still kind of do. It's still in the back of my mind,
I
but
can tell.
knowing
It.
that hey, someone lost their life, maybe by some miracle, me being there 30 seconds
Mm.
faster could have saved their life. I don't know, and I'll never know. More likely, probably not, but I'll never know that, and I have to live with that. And that's something that a lot of storm chasers deal with for those that chase tornadoes
Sure thing.
regularly.
No, you're absolutely right, and you're a storm chaser first. You happen to be a, you know, almost all of us eventually are going to be thrown into the role of a first responder, right? And that's not something you sign up for, or most storm chasers, young or old. I mean, I started this, just what 7, 8 years ago, just chasing monsoons and stuff. But in throughout my career, I've seen stuff as a first responder, just things just that you're just thrown into, but you're expected to do that, right? It's your job. But when you're a storm chaser, you're doing this as a hobby. And I've seen that I'm just going to go there because we've seen that kind of some of the Twitter drama fests in the past. People start, questioning, well, why didn't you stop? Why don't you stop, or do you stop?
Yep.
And there are some people who say, I don't have the experience. I don't have the mental capacity to do that, and I really don't want to get judgmental into every single person. I don't think it's anybody's business but your own how you choose to decide to respond to that. But I'm so glad that you're talking about it because you were kind of you were thrown into that position once it happened, and then now you're left to deal with those effects, right? I think that's important to understand because, ooh, I'm trying to prepare myself for that because of experiences like people like you telling me this. And I've seen some storm chasers that are still recording as they're going into, uh, some of the damage zones where people are injured and stuff. And I watch a lot of those. I watch as many of those as I can because it's giving me an example of what to expect. And it's not very pretty, but at the same time, while I can still love and still focus on the chase and all of the technical aspects of it, I do want to be mentally prepared for that because I don't think we talk about the mental anguish that we experience and the mental highs and lows as storm chasers, it often shows. We're often talking about that. We're thrown into this fun hobby, and at the same time, we don't realize that we're bringing our past experiences, like you talked about, from being bullied to being whisked around the country, but having those things that ground you, I think, are so important. And I did want to ask you about, this is my podcast. I can talk about whatever I want, but you talked about your faith also. And I'm not afraid to get away from that. If somebody is grounded in whatever it would be, I think faith is important to a lot of people. And you've brought that up. And I think in many times interviewers are afraid to go there, right? But I'd like to ask you about that too. How has both your faith and your family helped, I was going to say grind you. No, not grind you, ground you. How did you feel grounded because of that support? Because you seem to be that kind of person that wants to always help when you can. And any time that I've asked you, I've texted you, or we met up in somewhere in the middle of some northeastern lake in New Mexico, you're always willing to say, hey, this is what's going on. Here's what I think is going to go down. You're always willing to help, but I know it's not just with me, but you seem to be that person that is always willing to just share knowledge and give people your best bet as to what to chase and what to do. But you're also a kind person, and that comes from somewhere. So if you wouldn't mind talking about that, I'd love to hear it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not afraid to talk about my religion or my personal beliefs. I'm very much under the belief that I think any belief is better than no belief. And I think it serves a lot of good in the world. My personal faith is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So for those that may or may not know, that is Mormon. So for those who don't know, yes, I am a Mormon. I am not afraid of my religion, and I know a lot of Christianity does not like my religion, but it is a religion based off of Christ and the gospel of Christ. And I think an important thing as a follower of Christ is to uphold his gospel, right? That means being your brother's keeper. That means being kind, not stealing, not hurting, not harming, taking care of people. That was the message of Christ. And for me, I think it even goes a step further. Now, it's fun to be a scientist and also be religious, because that's like the big problem with the world is you can't blend both, right? It's either this or this. And there are some benefits to separating both. My personal belief, because I am a Christian and I'm fairly religious, is that God obviously created the world. As a scientist, I don't quite think the timing is about the same. I think there's some discrepancy there. But who's to say mankind is only recorded when they were on the Earth, and when, Earth only matters when we were here. But hey, side tangent. But
that's somebody else's podcast.
That's somebody else's podcast. I am a simple man.
Yeah.
But I believe that God created the world and he gave mankind the stewardship of the planet. And I believe that also on top of that, if God is the creator of this universe, of this world, then he is one heck of a meteorologist. And I want to go figure out from that guy how tornadoes work. And to me, I think science and religion are such a beautiful way to merge life, right? Because science is all about understanding what's going on, and religion's all about the why things are going on. And whatever religion you follow, it does not really matter to me, because I personally believe most, if not all, religions preach that you should generally better yourself, better your community, and better those you're around, right? In order to align yourself more to your chosen deity. So in this case, as myself, speaking only for myself, I see that as a way that we can take what I know and save people's lives and improve their life here on this world. So in this sense, me being a meteorologist, my job is literally the protection of life and property of people who do not understand weather. That is purely what it is. And going as a storm chaser, I am super fascinated by the weather, and you'll find me next to the next tornado, 50 yards out, screaming like a wild banshee, having a great time, because that's what I enjoy. The second it hits the
Sharing
building,
videos
yeah,
of darkness, and then all of a sudden the light comes back.
yep,
I think that was close.
yeah. So I love getting in there. I love feeling the power because it really makes you feel very insignificant and small and really puts you in your
Mm,
place. But it's amazing to watch something with so much power go on. But that all stops the second you watch someone's house get taken. You watch a building get
mm.
smashed. You watch someone's car get thrown. The second that starts happening, the fun is gone. You are now watching someone's worst day possible happen to them in their lives and potentially their last day. And I feel like it is my duty and my personal only duty, because I will only tell myself this, I will never put this charge on anybody else, that if I'm in a situation in severe weather, my first priority is obviously to have fun and enjoy the experience. My second priority is care for the people that are affected by said weather event, whether it be hurricanes, tornadoes, ice storms, you name it, whatever,
Mhm.
whatever it may be. Be in a position to keep yourself safe, but then be able to help people if the need arises. And if the need arises, you better go help, because I have the ability to go help. So I feel comfortable going into those situations and dealing with
Yeah.
search and rescue. It's not for everybody, and it doesn't have to be for everybody. Work through your own self of what you're comfortable with. You're
Mm.
never expected anything. And oftentimes, if you don't know what you're doing going into search and rescue, you might become more of a hindrance. But to me, that just means I need to get trained and I need to go through more effort to educate myself so I can be more useful in those situations, because we're only going to have
Right on.
more. We're only going to have more tornadoes. You're only going to have more
Right.
communities devastated. You're only going to have more people who lose their lives. That's something we can't really control. It's frustrating, but we can't control it. But what you can do is make a difference. And so, with my religion and everything kind of tying this all back, um, I believe that I'm that way. I don't think anything in meteorology needs to be a competition. I personally believe that
Mm.
we can all share and work together, whether it's academia, storm chasers, anybody, just everybody. I think we can all work together to save people's lives, because that's what really matters. And yeah,
Sounds like a calling, like it's grown. Your passion for chasing has grown into a calling to also continue to pursue meteorology, not because it's fun, because I don't know why you guys do that, because I suck at math, and my first class I would probably be like, yeah, I'm just gonna go chase storms, screw that. Oh dear.
I'm bad at
But
math, but
also,
hey,
you're obviously making it, but you're feeling that calling growing, because it's involved around people, right? You're the passion is for the skies, but then it comes down to wanting to learn, wanting to do this as a career, because you want to help people, and it comes down to that, and that's kind of who you are as a person, which is why when you volunteered whatever to be the first guinea pig, I was super excited to even do this. I wanted to ask you though, is
for
there
the
any
record,
advice
I
you would
want to
give to
point
some?
out for the record, I want to point out that I did not
Uh
say I wanted to be the first one. I just said, sure, I'll do it.
huh. That is true. That is true. I have goodness, and you know what, Hunter? Honestly, this being the first podcast, when I first put that idea out there of doing something like this, and not being afraid to get into the weeds of the mental aspects of it, and you and I have already seen too many people who struggled with mental health, and oftentimes we don't see it. We bury those things. We compartmentalize them in the same way. When you come upon a scene, you just learn to act on that. But too often we hide those things, and then we don't hear about some of the worst things happening until it's too late, or until you hear from a friend that somebody took their own life, or somebody was going through such an extremely challenging situation. I think it's okay to not necessarily share, put, wear your emotions on your sleeve, but it's okay to build that into that community, and find that kind of friendship, and find that kind of tribe where you have a few people that you can trust when you're going through those deepest and darkest times. Because I think we all need each other. I think there's a reason why it's called community, and I think there's a reason why people like yourself and my own self feel called to a different purpose, and we want to make a difference, but we want to reach out to those people also, because so many of us go through the same things. And I think being able to tell your story, that and um, share how other people aren't alone, right? Like I never knew what you were telling me about how you endured that and the different things that you had to go through. But you had that support that you needed, and you still were able to focus and grow um, into making it, right. We don't just arrive at making it. We don't just arrive at the top of the mountain. Sometimes there's a lot of hiking to be done, and I want others to know that too. I wanted to ask you, by the way, um, is there any advice you would give to someone facing their own challenges or hardships?
Sure. Yeah. Um, the funny thing about advice is that the advice is never quite perfect because I'm still going through, obviously, my own challenges, right? Um, my own
Sure.
advice is just from my experience and things that I go through and what's helped me to overcome it. Um, my advice purely is just take a step away, recognize who you are, what makes you happy, start there. Look at
Mm,
yourself and ask yourself, what fills me with purpose? What gives me meaning? Start there.
mm,
Boil it down as basic as possible. Start there and ask yourself, is this important to me? Because if it is, you have somewhere to go. If you're not at that point, that's okay, because I had to do that too. I had to ask myself, and I've had to do this process probably about 3 or 4 times through my life. I'm only 27 years old, for the record, um, but that doesn't mean that I haven't gone through my own personal difficult struggles. Everybody goes through their own. But if you don't have a purpose or you don't know what it is yet, that is okay. That is
mm.
completely fine. The biggest thing is to recognize there is something or some place for you in this world where you can make a difference, where you are needed, and where people will be there who love you and cherish you and care for you. Those people do exist. Sometimes it's really hard. For me,
Indeed.
I have had to find people all over the world to find people that I feel like are my community and people I feel like that care for me.
Sure.
That doesn't mean that I'm any less of a person or anything. It just means, hey, you might have to put in a little more work, but that's your struggle. Somebody else's might be different. Just focus on the key things, boil it down, find what fills you with happiness, what gives you purpose, and what's something you want to work towards. And it's okay if you have to reinvent that every time. Like, it does not matter how
Oh
many
yeah.
times you have to do this process or anything. Like, I'm still
Right.
redefining who I want to be or what I want to do. And actually, funny
Yeah.
enough, I'm probably about to go through that again as I finish college, and maybe
Right.
some point, obviously, raising a family will be something in my future as for my wife and I, and that'll be a whole other challenge to deal with in the future.
it's
But
it it's okay to be that Forrest Gump when he's been running across the country. It's okay to finally stop in the middle of Monument Valley and go, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do this anymore, right? I don't think I'm going to do something different.
yeah, that's the beauty with life, is that you can take a pause and go, okay, I'm here.
Mm,
Let's acknowledge the progress I made, and let's cherish that. Let's celebrate that. Let's see where we can go from here. And sometimes that's a hard decision.
right.
Sometimes it's saying goodbye to people. Sometimes it's
Mm,
changing who you are. But once you find that one
yeah.
thing, nothing else matters. It
Oh
doesn't matter
man.
what people say, what
Right.
people do, what they think. It doesn't matter, because that is who you are, and nothing will ever change that as long as you don't change that.
Right,
So,
man. That's living authentically, right? That's being true to who you are, and just no. I keep seeing so many. Sometimes I get obsessed with watching these videos about or reading stories about people near the end of their lives, and what do you regret the most? And they're like, just doing the things that I wanted to do and not doing the things others wanted me to do. And it seems to be that common theme is that they regret not just going for it because they had nothing else to lose. It was their life. It was their quarter in the. And I don't know about that. I'm aging myself. It was their quarter in the video game, right? Playing Defender, and for those of you who ever played Defender, what is it? Donkey Kong on the console, Mortal Kombat, all these wild games back in the 80s. Don't hate me. Give it. I dated myself. That's okay. I even use the word bitchin' a lot still sometimes. So take that. But um, and what about the haters? What about people who, what do you have to say about people that, that just decide to try and always, make muck things up for you. If someone's gotten, if someone is surrounded by people who are negative generally, do they have an obligation to try to bring that person up or to bring those people with them? Or do they have or are they free to just go, this isn't the kind of tribe that I want to be around. This isn't the community I want to be a part of. Is it okay to kind of, if you're not being treated right, to be a little bit of a lone wolf, or to just have a smaller group of friends, people who trust you and who celebrate your victories?
That's a great question because I've been, trying to find that myself throughout my life.
Mm.
Um, and sometimes more recently, sometimes more in the past. But um, at the end of the day, there will be people that do not like what you do, whether you're doing it right or wrong. It unsurprisingly doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're passionate about something and you want to be a force, whether good or bad, there will be pushback always, just naturally. There will be people who don't agree, disagree, and whatnot. Um, in my case, my passion is storm chasing, and not everybody's going to like it. Not everybody likes my opinion, and I'm not going to try to claim that I am perfect or that I am any role model in any case. I have my flaws. I'm a bit of a show off, and I'm loud and obnoxious, just to name a couple. And I have my
No,
own
not at all.
challenges to work through and to overcome. But I think the biggest thing you can do, and this is hard, and I'm saying this from my own experience, it's hard to just accept that people don't like you and that there's nothing you can really do about it.
Mm.
And the best thing you can do is just keep working at what you know is right. People will come, people will go, whether they're friendly or not. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what's inside
Mm.
of you. If your personal guiding
Right.
compass directs you, outside noise is not going to affect you anymore. And
Right.
I wish there was an easier answer because sometimes it's just suffer through it and you'll be okay in the end. And things will get better with time. Karma is a funny thing, I will
Mm.
tell you that, for better
Isn't
or
that the
worse.
truth?
But
Right.
um, but I never want to condone any retaliation or anything. The best revenge
Mm.
is success. The best revenge
Mm.
is
Oh,
happiness.
I
The
love
best
that.
revenge is moving forward. And it's not always easy, and it's really easy to get tossed up in emotions or whatnot, myself included.
Oh man,
But
ain't
just
that the truth?
focus on what drives you as a person and focus on that truth. Because if you and I'm repeating myself, but it's just focus on what you love doing. Nothing else will
Absolutely.
stop you. So yeah.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. I really appreciate you just being willing to elaborate on that. I honestly think, and I've come to the conclusion that, I have no vested interest in someone who has no vested interest in me. And why does that, why should I bother if someone is whether they're haters or whatever it would be? All I have to do is focus on my passion, man, and focus on doing the things that I love. And if my photos happen to be a little too oversaturated for someone, who cares? It's the way I like to do things. If I want to do a composite and someone gets angry that I did a composite or so, who cares, right? If I love doing it and it's not hurting anybody else, and honestly, you're gonna have haters no matter what you do. You might, well, I chase a certain way. I don't like to go into the bear's cage. Well, maybe I'm a big wuss. Oh well, it doesn't matter because what I choose to chase. And I do want to get back to that really quickly as we start to wrap this up. But I want to get into some fun things too. Not necessarily have to dig too deeply in this, but what I want to know, what's the most exhilarating moment you had when you've chased, because you have been doing this for years now. What's your most exhilarating moment on a chase? I really want to find that out.
Sure.
Exhilarating or scary as hell? Like, one of
You
those
know,
moments.
I had I wish my only crime in this whole story is, gosh, I wish I documented it better. But hey, it was it was a storm chase back in June 4th, 2015. For those that may already know this date, it was the day where we had a supercell near, or supercell is a rotating thunderstorm, that generally can produce tornadoes. And this one, in this case, did by Simla, Colorado. And this was a day, so this was right after I graduated high school, and I wanted to go chase because all my family was busy doing stuff, and everybody's in, you know, first month of summer break past high school. You made it. People are moving on to college or doing who knows what, and we're all just living life. And we had a storm setup come up that day, and I remember having a deep feeling in my, I'm going to call it my gut, trust your gut feeling.
Yeah.
But I had this extremely strong feeling that this chase day was going to be legitimate. I had been watching it for a couple of days, and on the morning of, I remember waking up, running to my parents' office, getting on the computer, opening up weather.cod.edu, and just looking at weather models. I remember opening the HER model, and I remember watching it blow up a supercell about 10, 15 miles east of my house at about 2 p.m., and that it would go east a little bit and then start to dive a little southeast. And if it did so, it would likely start producing tornadoes. And so I said, you know what? I have nothing to do. I'm not at my job. I have a car. I'm just going to go chase it. But here's the problem. I don't have a map book. Well, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I did not have internet. I believe I had not a flip phone, but not a smartphone. So I didn't have internet access. And all I had was I stole my parents' camcorder video camera that recorded in 1080p. And so I took that, I grabbed a paper map book of Colorado, and I hopped in my car, and I drove straight east. So I have no satellite, no radar imagery, no weather information at all. Literally just, that's a cloud, I'm going to drive at it. And
You're sniffing the dirt.
Yeah,
Hunter.
basically,
sniffing the dirt.
Good quote from the movie Twister, but it's true. I just watched the thunderstorm blow up right at 2 p.m. I took a picture of it. I saw the tower from my backyard and went, "That's it. I need to go after it." So to cut some of the fluff of the story at this point, I chase after the storm and get into a funny argument with a local rancher who then was excited I was there to look at the storm, not just sitting on his land. And then avoided some large hail and drove along and ended up seeing from this storm a couple brief tornadoes that were just beautiful white skinny rope tornadoes come out of it. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm seeing tornadoes with zero weather information. Just find the thing.
Wow.
Am I able to recognize this type of storm structure and chase it? That's it. All I had to view was what I could see. And for context of where I was on a supercell, I was on the west side of the supercell, but inside of the hook, but not in the RFD. So I was permanently west of any circulation that was going to occur. So,
good.
And it was a big, large, like, I'm going to equate to Donkey Kong barrel in the sky, just big old barrel that would just rotate super fast. Right. And then every once in a while, you'd get a lowering to drop out of it, and then a tornado would come out of it. And it was just the most,
wow.
It just was so huge, just massively, just looking up and seeing just this barrel in the sky that is larger than any storm I had ever seen, and just the whole thing to the stratosphere is spinning. And not just a little updraft tower, I'm talking the whole column is moving. And I was like, we're going to get something big out of this for sure. And I ended up blowing into town, Rama, which is the town southwest of Simla. And I blew through all the side stop signs because I was afraid a tornado was going to bulldoze this town. And I actually had to yell at Dad and his son who were playing football in their front yard to go inside because there literally was a tornado coming. And they had no idea because they didn't have a siren. So I yelled at them and they ran inside. And I skirt around the outsides of town, get on the main highway and go east. And for those who know this person, if you look at Daniel Shaw, he has a great video of it. And you'll actually see my car because we get into a funny situation next to a tornado where thankfully the storm actually deviates a little more to the east and misses the town and goes in between Rama and Simla. And it produces a beautiful, very tall, white stovepipe tornado. Just super thick column all the way down. Just this beautiful tornado. And this was the first time I'd ever really gotten close to something that big. I'd been next to a couple tornadoes before, but this was the next big step for me. And I was alone. I didn't have my dad like I did last time when I was close to a tornado, and
Hmm.
I was the driver now. So I had all the power in the world to drive into it or not. And all I had was a southwest northeast road, and the tornado was going to cross it perpendicularly. So I had the opportunity to go as close as I wanted to. No one could tell me otherwise. And conveniently, an officer was behind me, and he actually pulled off and blocked the road to let anybody else come. So me and Daniel in separate vehicles. We didn't know each other at the time, but we just drove straight at where the tornado would cross. And I had one of the most miraculous experiences of my life where I could just sit there and watch this giant tornado just roll across the road. And when I say giant, it was extremely large at the top and then funneled down really quickly to the ground. So the ground contact wasn't as big as the rest of the whole funnel above.
Right.
But it was so big enough that I could almost be underneath that column, but still not be in the tornado. So I just remember on video going, "Oh my gosh," and just panning up, and all you see is just a white column all the way up into the sky,
Oh,
and that's the
perfect.
tornado. It's just giant, just super tall.
Do you still have that footage?
I do. I do.
Did you ever share it online
I maybe.
or on your?
I know Daniel has a better video of it, so it's his works just fine. And actually,
We'll have to dig up Daniel Shaw's footage.
yeah, he actually, unfortunately, he was in front of me, and the tornado was going over a hill, but that means we couldn't see over the hill and see where the tornado was actually making contact with the ground. You just see this big, large funnel, and if something's really huge and really close, it's very hard to gauge movement, and you don't want to be inside of it. So he drives up the hill, and I know he's a storm chaser because I recognize his vehicle. So I'm like, he's getting closer. The tornado's there. It should cross the road. I feel comfortable moving forward. That's a bit of a trap that I put myself in because I assumed he was fine, which meant I was fine. And that's a terrible assumption to make when being really close to tornadoes. So I drive up the hill. He stops. And I'm thinking, oh, I'll just pull off the side next to him. And he immediately throws it in reverse and is coming back down the highway. And you see on his video, we almost hit each other, and then we're both, doing this, backing up, because what happened was the tornado crossed the road, stopped, and started going west at us. But me coming up the hill couldn't tell that. He got up the hill, realized, oh crap, that's like 20 yards away, and it's coming towards me. And so he reverses. So then we're freaking out, driving back, trying to run away from the tornado as it's coming towards us. It breaks into multiple vortices, and I watch trees get snapped and thrown in the air as it crosses into a little grove of trees, and it takes a piece of the roof off of the structure, and then it turns back south and then continues on, and I watch the tornado zoom off. And then you think that would be the craziest moment, right? You think, wow, it can't get any more crazy than this. And it does. Because I didn't have radar, I was not aware of how big the hail was. I sat on that road, watched the tornado slowly move off and dissipate, and was like, cool, that was awesome. That was the coolest experience of my life. I've never been able to be that close to a tornado. Holy crap. I'm freaking out because this was amazing, right? And I sat for too long on that road and let the whole precipitation core now move over me. And as I'm pulling my car and drive, at the time I drove a 1999 Nissan Maxima. And I remember looking up through my glass up at the sky, watching the whole vault of the supercell, and just watching this white hailstone fall out and just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then hit the ground like 10 yards in front of my car, bounce 6 feet back up into the air, hit the pavement and shatter. And it was like this big. And I'm like, oh no. And I look up and there's just more.
Time to get out of here.
Just hundreds of them falling out of the sky. And I'm like,
oh
crap. So I just step on the gas and I'm trying to make it around the curve to get out of the hail core. And going back to my personal faith, I had an experience actually in this moment that I can only attribute it to God in this case. Anyone can say anything else and I don't really care. But I was driving along this road, and I remember sitting in that car thinking, I'm so screwed. This hail could kill me, because if it goes through the glass, it's only going to hit this part of me, which last time I checked, need this to live. And so a hailstone being wind propelled through glass is probably bad for my health. So I was genuinely scared for my life because I thought if a hailstone goes through my windshield, I'm done. So I'm careening around trying to make it around this corner, and I only make it to 35 miles an hour. And I get the strongest voice in the back of my head. It was so loud that I thought it was like another person in my car when I'm alone. And I just remember this voice saying, "You're going too fast. You need to slow down." And I immediately felt this sense of calm and a feeling that was just so strong that I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and actually in person, I respond because it was just such a tense moment that I was like, you're right. I should slow down. And so as I'm slowing down, I actually take a 4.5-inch hailstone to the front windshield. And
Wow.
from where it was positioned, if I would have hit it going faster, it probably would have came through my windshield, and probably would have hit me and hurt me, which would have led to a lot of other problems down the line. And I ride out
Jeez.
the hail core 4 3-inch hail. So for those that don't know, hail sizes, that's baseball, softball, and
Mhm.
greater sized hailstones. Just huge, huge rocks falling out of the sky. And they
I'm
devastated
not a
my
fan of
car.
hail. I don't know.
No, it's
Ah,
for people that love to drive into hail, more power to you. You guys have some delayed
right.
PTSD.
No kidding.
But I
I'm not a fan of hail.
no, I'm not either. I had my one time. I'm all right. I'll find it on the ground later, but I'm kind of okay. 2-inch hail, we're okay. Anything that above
Jeez,
is
man.
too much. And
That sounds amazing though, to be a
yeah,
part of that. And to there's nothing like that when you're sitting there and you just see the vault and just everything and the way it's turning. And
yep,
I like the Donkey Kong. It's not a Cinnabon, it's a Donkey Kong barrel at this point. It's
yep.
so massive. I just
It
love
just
that feeling. I
it
can't
was
wait.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I can't wait for just talking to you about it. Just gets me more pumped to wait for this season to come in, and I hope it's not a dud of a season.
No, I don't think so. I think this year will be probably for one of the first times in a while a real plains year. There's a lot of things that are leading towards that, and a lot of analogs of previous years that had similar conditions leading towards that.
Mm,
So I look forward to having more fun because this stuff is great. I hope no one gets hurt or killed from these
right.
tornadoes, but like you're still gonna find me out there on some random dirt road, middle of nowhere, trying to
No
find a
kidding.
tornado.
In a new vehicle, right? You got a new vehicle?
I
You got a
do.
Subi now?
I did. I unfortunately lost my Ford
Ah,
Focus to
you
a high
Subi
schooler.
people.
They're way more dangerous than tornadoes.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, my Focus had been hit by
oh
a few
man.
tornadoes. Very weak, very very weak,
It's
and
always the people.
lucky.
It's always
Yeah,
the people. The people are the danger, not the tornado generally.
yeah. I was on my way to a meeting and was waiting to make a left turn, and someone plowed into me at 40 miles an hour. So, but fortunately, I walked away, and the kid walked away completely unharmed. That's all that matters. I wasn't mad. It was just, it is what it is. It's a
I thought
car.
you said
We,
unarmed, like, oh, it's my arm severed.
no, we
Unharmed.
were able to
Okay.
walk away, and I
Wow.
realized that hey, this is probably more traumatic for him than for me. Uh, I can handle
Yeah,
this. All that matters, we got okay. We were okay. We can get other cars.
dude.
If there's more money in the world, that's fine, but we're all right. And so, yeah, I had to go
Right.
get a new car, which is kind of bummed, back to a car payment, but I did
Yeah,
get a
but now you're just like
Subaru.
everybody else with all the Subaru,
Yeah,
right?
I
I
chose
was
to
gonna
get my
say,
Subaru over other vehicles because of one, I drive a Ford Focus, so I have a smaller car. Subaru is small. The Crosstrek, I should say, is a little bit smaller, so it felt a little more comfortable. But it now has all-wheel drive, which is a step up, which is super nice to have in
heck
the middle
yeah,
of nowhere.
especially on those dirt roads.
Yeah,
Some of the dirt roads, like I'm all I can think of are those that gridded road that I never experienced before, and a couple of years ago drove through. Thanks to Jen Walton and John Serlin, they're like, "Oh, this is a great road. These are great roads," and they're in my little CRV. They were really great roads,
oh,
but
good.
you've got a giant hailer coming down from Holyoke or whatever that Holdridge, one of that area, and just marching south. You don't have a lot of time to to navigate those grids. I was not a fan. Let's put it that way. I like the hard top. But let me go into one other question before we finish this up, and I want to do a lightning round with you too. Just
Sure.
I know a lot of people do it, but it's fun, and I'll throw some questions at you. But are there any upcoming projects that you're working on right now, or that you're particularly excited about?
I'm not involved in any projects. If anyone has any projects about tornadoes and they want to invite me, hit me up. But no, this year, since I am graduating from my undergrad, I'm excited to just spend time chasing and whatnot. I might be out with some of my classmates because there's like a storm chasing class that our professors put on for one of our courses. So I look forward to potentially being a part of them. But otherwise, yeah, just being able to enjoy not having my life defined by exams or grades.
There you go. Well, also, and you have one other element that we haven't talked about. Is it Lucia or Lucia?
Lucia.
But what about her? How is she, Lucia? How is she's got to be supportive, man? Okay, bye, honey. I'm gonna go into the center of a tornado, hopefully, or very close to it. Bye. I'll see you hopefully on the other side.
I have.
How does she do this?
I have, for all you men out there, this is my advice. My first one is tell her you'll leave with this and come back with the same pieces you left with. You'll promise her massages and food. And a cool story that I probably can or cannot tell her.
I don't know if that's going to cut it, Hunter. I don't know if that's going to cut it.
It works.
There's got to be more.
It works for us. So funny story, some little context. She loves Costa Vida. It's like her favorite. I won't call it fast food, but it's like fast food. And she just adores the place. And conveniently, because I live here in Iowa, I have to take 35 to get back into the plains. Well, that takes me through Kansas City. There's a Costa Vida there. So whenever I go chase, I have one rule. I have to swing back through KC, grab some Costa Vida, drive it 3 hours back home to her.
It's cold by then. Yeah,
she gets like a salad anyway, so it's totally fine.
What?
Yeah, but
she needs to up the ante a little bit here.
Oh, trust me, if you go to Costa Vida and try the sweet pork, it'll change your life. So I bring her some of that. I spend some quality time with her, and I give her a massage, and tell her some fun stories of what I've been up to, and she tolerates it.
Good for her. She sounds like a really great person. So that's awesome.
She is amazing. So yeah,
good. We'll have to delve into that one of these days. But let's go into a lightning round just before we end up here. Mountains or oceans?
Mountains, easy.
Okay. NATOs or structure?
Definitely tornadoes.
You suck. I knew you were going to say that one. I asked you a long time ago, hey, well, how do you like shooting storms? And you said, what did you say? Get up close, shoot wide, right?
Yeah. My motto is get close, shoot wide. And if it fits, you're not close enough.
Shoot wide. Yeah, I don't know, man. I have a 12mm lens for Pete's sake, and that's still
perfect.
I still enjoy getting back so I can see the overshooting top. You're not going to see that from underneath the base.
Depends on your perspective.
Own, I guess.
No.
That's true. You can do it all, right? You can get close. You can still step back like me, the little coward out there. Oh yeah, there's Lori 30 miles away from Grady looking at the tornado warned storm inside. But
there are so many ways to chase.
People
get close or be a structure hippie. That's just two of the ways.
Yep.
So many ways to chase. It does not matter how.
As long as you chase to your knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think
knowledge
that's important.
And comfort.
I'm still learning. I'm still a newbie. Yeah, I'm getting closer. I'm getting more comfortable in positioning and everything. But I'm not going to be also, compelled to go, hey, get in there with everybody else when I don't feel comfortable doing it because my limited knowledge. So I'll get there. I'm a noob. I get it.
You got
what
this.
What about favorite weather phenomena? Exactly. Favorite weather phenomenon. Not tornadoes.
Oh, dang it. If you exclude tornadoes, dang.
Lightning round.
I'd have to say probably hurricanes in that case because something about being in an eye wall is a magical experience. It's so different than any other type of thunderstorm on the planet. So.
Nice. Okay. All right. That works.
Yeah.
One word to describe the feeling of conquering a challenge. That feeling of conquering a challenge.
Relief. Honestly,
relief.
just knowing that you did it and it's done. That is a reward in of itself, honestly.
Mm. Nice. Sunrise or sunset?
Ooh, sunrise.
Okay. Ooh, I kind of like sunsets, but top item on your bucket list?
Ooh, probably skydiving into a hurricane.
Oh gosh. And
the most boring
I have to
thing
go
ever.
make a skydiving into a hurricane. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, into a hurricane, I guess.
Yeah, the eye is calm, so it's boring.
So you have to jump on the flight with the NOAA crew, right? That
Oh yeah,
flies into
give me a dropson that measures all the atmospheric stuff for you, and I'll just go down with it. Easy.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So since we're off the rails, it sounds like a perfect time to wrap this up. Hunter, I appreciate you. I appreciate being able to just kind of get into the weeds with you for a little bit. I appreciate all the knowledge that you're just so willing to share. This was a great time. I hope people got something out of this. I think it's important to tell our stories, right? And I think I know you a little bit better than I did, an hour ago. So I think that's really a really positive thing. I think we need to keep going and keep pushing forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any last things you wanted to share with people? Any kind of a favorite quote, or what's a favorite Hunter quote?
Well, a favorite Hunter quote would be "Get close, shoot wide," but honestly,
I knew that one.
my quote honestly comes from someone that I really looked up to and was fortunate to meet before he passed away. But Tim Samaras, he was a man who was a engineer by trade of being self-taught, but fell into tornado chasing and was the first man to actually get a tornado probe inside of a tornado and measure some atmospheric data inside. Just doing the complete impossible at the time. And one of his favorite quotes was just "driven by passion," and that's how he described himself. Is that he was focused on what he loved and what he enjoyed, and nothing else mattered, whether people liked him or not, whether he had disagreements or arguments or whatnot. He knew what he loved to do, and he was fascinated by the challenge of understanding tornadoes. And I love that. I think that is something that I strive to copy my life after, is focusing on what I'm passionate about and making that the thing that drives me in my life. So "Driven by Passion" by Tim Samaras is probably
I
my
love
quote.
that. Wow. So. I was expecting the other famous quote, the keep doing,
Yep.
keep at it. I'm doing it. But "Driven by Passion," it's so much more succinct and a perfect way to end this. Hunter, thanks again. Thanks for sharing your stories, and thanks for being the guinea pig. I appreciate you so much, and I look forward to seeing you out there on the plains.
Absolutely. I look forward to seeing you as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, awesome. There you have it, everybody. Hunter Fowkes. I almost said folks again because I messed it up the first time. We had Hunter here. Wonderful time, and I look forward to bringing you episode 2 as soon as I finish episode 1, and we will talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot. And that's it.
Woohoo!